I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Disgusting. She's Anna Navarro in your wildest imagination. You could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere.
That Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch.
And the Vista just received a blow to the face worth $800 million. Additionally, Megyn Kelly brought a flamethrower and popcorn. Caroline Leavitt won more than simply a lawsuit. She used those daytime divas to clean the studio floor. Megyn is suddenly insulting people as if they were party favors. Joy is perplexed. Megyn is out here turning court victories into comic gold while Whoopi is furious. How could everything go so horribly wrong? Stay put. This train disaster was recently upgraded to first class.
Having just paid $15 million for a defamation lawsuit, would think not to engage in conspiracy theories about assassination attempts, but I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I gotta ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about.
At last, it took place. Something far hotter than their lukewarm lattes was recently served to the sardonic TV queens. A courtroom slap worth $800 million that was so thunderous it could be heard in every ABC makeup trailer. Caroline Leavitt. Caroline Leavitt has indeed lawfully obstructed The View. Additionally, Megyn Kelly brought Nepal in the aftermath rather than just popcorn.
I'd like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a...
In front of millions, you're casually gossiping while sipping coffee one minute, and then you're bleeding more money than a cryptocurrency guy in a naked market the next. For many years, The Viewpoint was based on a reputation for having sassy views, which seems to transfer into publicly disparaging everyone we don't like that week. However, it turns out that there could be repercussions if you carelessly launch a media firing squad on someone without a lawyer double-checking your adorable jokes.
Melania Trump came out and said she's about as pro-choice as they come. And here was the reaction on The View.
I think she hates him. Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
Would you look? This is a network that still runs out fact checks to these women, like it's concerned about them staying factual. She hates Trump. She doesn't want to be near him. She doesn't want to be president again. She destroyed the Rose Garden, and she hates Christmas. That is what passes for news on a network they did a presidential...
Additionally, there are oopsie consequences rather than just a small smack on the wrist. No, we're discussing repercussions of $800 million. The kind of financial blow that causes sponsors to suddenly become amnesic and CEOs to sob in the parking. Lot the type that prompts television executives to question whether it's too late to change the program to silent yoga.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men actually voting more for him, and you have and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have.
This was a complete reckoning, not merely a legal setback. Caroline didn't simply prevail. She walked away from the destruction wearing legal high heels after setting off a media landmine. And after witnessing the flaming remains, Megyn Kelly made the decision to use them as a masterclass on how not to operate a talk show in the era of accountability. Because ultimately the bill comes due when you compromise journalistic integrity for clickbait catfights, and this one had a legal interest rate. Like a jackhammer on a house of cards. The case that began as just another Tuesday for The View turned into a full-fledged legal juggernaut that rocked the foundations of legacy media. It initially appeared to be the typical cycle. A dash of misinformation, loud opinions, selective, anger, and no repercussions. However, the producers walked on a legal landmine in heels this time, instead of just picking a quarrel. Caroline Leavitt wasn't merely suing them for fun. She arrived with a legal dream team, receipts, and the kind of vindictive patience typically found in airport TSA lines and monks. This was about transforming a smear campaign into a masterclass, on the purpose of defamation laws, not about retaliating. The goal was to make false narratives so costly that, before airing, each future hot take must pass 6 compliance departments, undergo a Vatican exorcism, and have a seance with Walter Cronkite.
Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, yay, on January 20th of this month. Not everyone's happy about it, and many people would like us to be more focused on the insurrection that he personally unleashed, if you ask them. As we discussed earlier, they think it's as bad as like the Holocaust, and you don't have to take my word for it. Here is Sunny Hostin of The
January
View
6th was
today.
an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery.
Yeah, the January 6th is right up there next to the Holocaust and
what a magnificent catastrophe. The amount was $800 million. It's more than simply a figure. For a daytime program based on self-righteous, finger-wagging, selective facts and latte-fueled sarcasm, that is an extinction-level event. A network. Executive most likely screamed into a throw pillow somewhere in a Manhattan office tower until it crumbled into remorse and dust. Caroline Leavitt, meanwhile, remained composed and was likely drinking bubbly or shopping for a yacht. Objection is a vessel with a legal topic. Overruled looks to be about correct. To be honest, she didn't simply win the case. On the moral high ground, she purchased a beachside home and paid entrance, presenting Megyn Kelly. And not in the nonchalant manner of, oh, I suppose I'll weigh in. Number with a clipboard in one hand and a flamethrower in the other, Megyn entered like a federal audit. Her response was less criticism and more tactical, airstrikes, accompanied by iced coffee. She didn't merely make fun of the scenery. With the precision of a board surgeon and the delight of someone who has been rehashing this meltdown since 2006 with popcorn and resentment, she dissected them, like a frog in a high school biology class.
get this little lecture from, forgive me, those bitches over at The View.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. Well, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
Not what he said.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never, he was looking out for me, but not those monsters.
With a smug look, Megyn just earned the Gold 3 sponsorship deals and exclusive distribution rights if sarcasm were an Olympic event. She didn't yell or rant, and there weren't any dramatic eye rolls or microphone drops. In a studio with Throw, Cushions, a media veteran, presents a cold case file titled, Why You Don't Play Supreme Court in a Gradual, Delicious Burn. Her clinical delivery, her smile and razor-sharp reasoning, the type that appears just before the shocking conclusion in documentaries. Since the facts were already loudly screaming in HD, she didn't need to scream. Her derision was veiled in icy reasoning and icy grins, the type that don't even move to say, "I told you so." Megyn Kelly was the spirit animal for the courtroom rulings that week, if there was one. Stylish, ruthless, and legally impervious in high-end heels. Even though the Viewpoint lost the lawsuit, Means ensured that they also lost the appearance of invincibility. But let's take a moment to go back in time. What even caused this to occur? How could a political candidate who was only in her 30s use a legal battering ram to destroy a television station? Simple. She took the long route. Evidently, The View was unaware that their favorite sport had regulations, and that those regulations included litigation regarding heaping onto someone they didn't like. Oh no.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended, because you know who showed.
Its legal team didn't simply file a case and hope for the best. They arrived with enough documented evidence to create a Netflix documentary series, along with an alphabet soup of defamation legislation and lie laws. Their playground was discovery. Segment scripts are captured by emails. Oh, take a look at those internal notes that essentially acknowledged fabricating information to boost ratings. And this is where the juicy part came. It turns out that courts do not dismiss claims as entertainment when they are televised to millions of spectators while neatly omitting those annoying facts. They begin to perform mathematical operations, reputational harm assessment, check for lost career opportunities, double-checking with malicious purpose and a dash of carelessness. What the public dismissed as simply another hot Tuesday served as the basis for one of the priciest legal spankings ever shown on television. The group didn't only try to apologize. They performed damage calculations with the accuracy of a Wall Street expert. And Caroline's poker face was the only thing that remained intact when the proof struck the courtroom, like a missile. At least for The View, it was made worse by how cozy they had become.
Hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections, 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
I have another legal note.
My God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo. I have a legal note.
Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this.
Seated at a table shielded by decades of unbridled authority and a welcoming crowd, they never perceived Leavitt as a danger. A huge error, Caroline transformed their arrogant miscalculation into a PowerPoint presentation worth $800 million that explains why it is inappropriate to make fun of someone who has access to excellent attorneys. Megyn Kelly, meanwhile, watched everything play out as if she were at Wimbledon, only that each serve was a subpoena and each backhand was a court decision. She did more than simply applaud when the verdict was announced. She virtually gave a TED Talk on media accountability, given with eyes that said, "I told you so, but let me say it louder," with a hint of irony. Megyn didn't have to make up the fury. She merely presented the facts. A media conglomerate that behaved carelessly was discovered and fined heavily. She presented The Viewpoint as a warning, a bloated holdover from a time when sarcasm was popular and accuracy was optional. Her derision wasn't merely cruel, it was more painful because it was forensic and accurate. The repercussions were felt instantly throughout the larger media ecosystem. There was no need for anyone to speak. The panic was odorous. Hot takes abruptly became rather chilly. More question marks were added to headlines by editors. Attorneys started attending production meetings.
Of nothing more than tearing down women with the most petty and vacuous of insults. Leavitt appears to be a fierce operator, but she is also 27 and arguably quite glamorous. So of course, the kind and progressive voices at The View reacted to her appointment like this.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what...
All newsrooms developed an allergy to adjectives overnight. It was more damage control using a thesaurus and less journalism. A network vice president most likely flipped through Caroline's lawsuit while yelling into a gluten-free muffin in an poorly lit boardroom. Because this is where it truly stinks. Megyn Kelly made sure to underline the fact that this was about reckless, clumsy insults masquerading as opinions and media malfeasance concealed beneath humorous catchphrases, not even ideology. She rejoiced because someone at last held a media giant accountable in a language that understands money, not because politics caused The View to collapse. Everyone recalls what fact-checking is when you slap a network with an $800 million bill for negligence. The disastrous fallout. More quickly than a terrible Tinder date, advertisers left. Syndication agreements devolved into awkward quiet. In a rather poetic turn of events, reruns of the original piece were silently removed from the internet, as if denying it ever happened would somehow reverse the financial catastrophe it caused. Naturally, The View made an effort to pretend nothing had happened in order to weather the storm as they always do. However, the audience took note. The sponsors took note. The interns were undoubtedly aware when they were abruptly prohibited from speaking without first obtaining legal approval. Suddenly, daytime television began to resemble judicial procedures more than opinion sharing. Karoline Leavitt, meanwhile, did more than simply prevail in a legal battle. Overnight, she changed. The air of an experienced gladiator, who had previously been viewed as a youthful political upstart, entered the Colosseum, turned a table, and left with the emperor's credit card. She not only received justice but also made headlines. More credibility and a payoff than any PR effort could purchase. She turned a media slander into a victory parade, proving that maybe, just maybe, being underestimated is the best disguise, especially when your opponents are too busy laughing to see the subpoenas flying toward them like legal frisbees and Megyn Kelly. She did more than just stand by Caroline. She supported responsibility in its entirety with the zeal of a TikTok House tax auditor. She didn't do it for show. It served as a rallying cry for all prominent figures who have ever been duped by a haughty studio panel that believes a studio audience is equivalent to a jury. She presented the situation as a change in culture. The realization by media executives that their microphones weren't shields when carelessness had a cost. Megyn didn't merely make fun of SAS when they were subpoenaed, she forecasted. And let's face it, nothing terrifies a talking head more than the prospect of future lawsuits. Behind the scenes, media executives very likely changed all of the HR manuals. Before transmission, segment producers learned the dark art of fact-checking, and talk show hosts all across the world began concluding sentences with allegedly as if it were a nervous twitch. The legacy of The View is now complicated. It used to be a forum for women to discuss various viewpoints, but these days it more closely resembles the warning your legal department raises at onboarding. It turned into a tutorial on how unbridled banter can destroy credibility and real bank accounts, rather than boosting discourse. Megyn Kelly rode shotgun like a media bounty hunter with a chic grudge, and Karoline Leavitt sued for cultural correction in addition to damages. They didn't simply take down a show together, they etched a warning on the network television's marble columns. Consider your words carefully, or at the very least, communicate with your legal team first. By the end, nobody had to say it aloud. All of America's talk shows were silent, and that spoke for them. All of a sudden, every joke felt like a last point. Every viewpoint was reviewed by a Harvard Law alumnus and 4 interns. Daytime television didn't go away. It just became far less entertaining and had a legal filter. The most costly segment in The View's history, the true punchline, most likely garnered the lowest ratings that day. A thoughtless line or a throwaway moment. Additionally, it is currently the most expensive viewpoint ever to air before lunch. Thus, keep this incident in mind the next time you witness a talk show presenter teasing a young politician with the elegance of an inebriated uncle around Thanksgiving. Additionally, keep in mind Caroline Leavitt, who refrained from screaming, complaining, and tweeting in all caps. Megyn Kelly didn't simply make fun of The View. She established the benchmark for legal sass. She sued, won, and took $800 million and the ultimate mic drop. A reminder that sometimes the most damaging burns result from cold truths rather than agitated shouts. I told you that high heels and a well-timed